Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell y'all something right now. The fastest way to lose yourself is to keep trying to please everybody else. You got one life, just one, and you're going to spend it tiptoeing around people who ain't even rooting for you? Nah, we ain't doing that today. Stop seeking approval from people who don't matter. This one truth can change a life if you let it. From the moment we're born, we're taught to look outside of ourselves for validation. We want our parents to clap when we walk, our teachers to nod when we answer, our friends to cheer when we fit in. But what starts as innocent encouragement turns into a lifelong habit of people-pleasing. It creeps into how we dress, how we speak, what we choose to pursue, and even who we pretend to be. Before you know it, you're living a version of your life filtered through the eyes of other people who don't even carry the weight of your dreams. The craziest part, most of them aren't even thinking about you. That's right. While you're obsessing over how they'll perceive you, they're too busy worrying about themselves. It's a game you can't win because the rules are always changing and the players don't even know the scoreboard. You could be doing your best and they'll still find something to criticize. You can water yourself down to be more acceptable and they still won't accept you fully. Seeking approval from people who don't matter is like chasing a shadow. You run fast to try harder, bend further, and it never becomes something solid. You'll never feel seen because you're not being you. You're being what you think they want. That kind of life is not only exhausting, it's soul suffocating. It's waking up every day and performing instead of living. It's measuring your worth based on the applause of people who wouldn't care if you disappeared tomorrow. Approval is addictive. When we get it, we feel validated for a moment, but when it disappears, and it always does, we feel lost again. So we go back for another hit, like addicts in need of a fix. That's not freedom. That's a prison with invisible bars. The problem is most of us don't even realize how deep we're in. We think we're just being considerate or humble or normal, when in reality we're terrified of disapproval. But what's worse, the sting of someone not liking you or the lifetime of not liking yourself because you never gave yourself a chance to be real. When you stop seeking approval from the wrong people, you make room for the right ones to find you. People who see you for who you are, not for what you can perform. People who respect your truth, even when it's inconvenient or different. But more importantly, you start to approve of yourself. You look in the mirror and recognize the face staring back. You stop twisting yourself into a version of someone else's expectations. You speak from your core instead of your fear. You take up space. You walk with the kind of confidence that says, I'm not for everyone and I don't have to be. That's the shift. That's the freedom. When you truly stop chasing approval, the power dynamic flips. You no longer need a crowd to validate your voice. You don't wait for permission to start, to speak, to dream. You begin moving like someone who knows their own worth, not because the world handed it to you, but because you finally decided to claim it. You realize that being misunderstood doesn't mean being wrong. That silence from others doesn't mean your value has decreased. That being disliked is not a death sentence. It's just a signpost that you're finally walking your own path. Fear is natural, but courage is a decision. Fear is not something you can escape. It lives in everyone, from the boldest leaders to the quietest dreamers. It's that voice in the back of your head that whispers worst-case scenarios, magnifies risk, and reminds you of every failure you've ever had. It's the instinct that tells you to hold back, stay safe, and play small. The problem isn't fear itself, it's what we do with it. Fear is just information. It's your brain trying to protect you from pain or embarrassment or disappointment. But courage, that's something else entirely. Courage is what you choose when fear is present. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's action in spite of it. Most people wait to feel brave before they act, but that moment rarely comes. If you wait until you're not scared, you'll wait forever. The truth is, Courage comes after the step, not before. You make the move and then you feel it. You speak up and then you realize your voice was strong enough. You take the leap and then you see the net that was never going to appear until your feet left the ground. The people we admire most, the ones who start businesses, walk away from toxic situations, speak truth to power, chase huge dreams, they didn't start fearless. They started fed up. Fed up with holding back, fed up with shrinking, fed up with waiting for permission. They had fear in one hand and faith in the other, and they chose to move anyway. Every courageous act begins with that choice. It's not about having all the answers. It's about trusting yourself to figure it out along the way. Courage doesn't mean you know what's going to happen. It means you're okay not knowing. It means you trust that whatever comes next, you'll survive it, learn from it, and grow through it. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It'll sound smart. It'll say, this isn't the right time. Or what if you fail? Or you don't have enough experience. But behind all that logic is a scared version of you, just trying to avoid rejection or judgment or pain. You have to learn to separate the signal from the noise. You have to realize that the presence of fear is often proof that you're stepping into something meaningful. If it didn't matter, you wouldn't be scared. But what a tragedy it would be to let fear decide the course of your life. What would you do if you weren't afraid? What conversation would you have? What project would you start? What truth would you finally speak out loud? You owe it to yourself to find out. The courage you need isn't some magical thing that arrives in the mail one morning. It's a muscle, and like any muscle, it only grows when you use it. The more you face the fear and move anyway, the easier it becomes to push through the next time. Courage builds on itself. Every small act of bravery stacks up into a life that no longer answers to fear. Sometimes courage means taking a huge leap. Other times it's just showing up when it would be easier to hide. Sometimes it's saying no when you're used to saying yes. Sometimes it's asking for help when you're used to pretending you got it all together. Whatever it looks like for you, understand this. Courage is not something you wait for. It's something you choose. And when you choose it enough times, it becomes part of you. Your life isn't a democracy. You don't need everyone's vote. One of the biggest traps people fall into is the idea that their life has to be up for public approval. It starts subtly, asking for opinions on what to wear, what job to take, who to marry, where to live. Before long, you're not living your life, you're campaigning for it, constantly hoping that the crowd cheers you on. But the truth is, your future does not need to be agreed upon by a committee. Your dreams do not need to be explained and justified to every person who raises an eyebrow. The moment you start seeking votes for your decisions, you lose ownership of them. You dilute your truth so it fits into someone else's comfort zone. You abandon your instincts because someone else doesn't understand them. You slow your steps because others haven't caught up. A democracy works great in government, but in personal growth, it's a disaster. When you make yourself accountable to every opinion, you paralyze your own movement. You start collecting voices in your head that don't belong there, voices that question your worth, your direction, your timing. And many of those voices are coming from people who don't have to live with the consequences of your choices. The spectators in your life, not players. They don't carry your burdens. They don't share your dreams. And yet you give them the power to vote on your destiny. It's a trap rooted in fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of disappointing people you care about, or even people you barely know. So you start to edit your life like a script that needs approval. You water down your voice to make it more palatable. You aim for what's acceptable instead of what's authentic. and you become more consumed with being liked than being fulfilled. But here's what happens when you stop needing everyone's vote. You free yourself. You begin to listen to your own voice again. You remember what it's like to trust your gut, to follow your fire, to build something just because it feels right to you. And yes, some people will disapprove. Some will distance themselves. Some might even criticize you openly. But once you stop trying to win every vote, their disapproval doesn't derail you. It doesn't define you. You understand that disagreement is not a threat, and validation is not a requirement. People will have opinions whether you succeed or fail. So you might as well do what sets your soul on fire. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history, in art, in business, in culture, happened because someone dared to ignore the crowd. They didn't ask for a vote before they changed the game. They didn't wait for applause before they began. They simply believed in what they felt called to do, and they did it. That's what living is. That's what power looks like. The more you practice choosing yourself without needing permission, the stronger that choice becomes. You learn to stand on your own 2 feet even when the ground is shaking. You learn to carry your purpose even when no one is clapping. You learn that your life is not a popularity contest. It's a mission. And missions aren't voted on. They're lived out with grit, grace, and unapologetic focus. Rejection is not a reflection of your worth. It's redirection. Everyone fears rejection because we're wired to want connection, approval, and belonging. When someone says no to us, whether it's a person, a job, an opportunity, or a dream, we instinctively take it personally. We think it means we weren't good enough, smart enough, talented enough, lovable enough. We internalize the no as proof that something must be wrong with us. But rejection doesn't speak the truth about your value. It only speaks about alignment. Sometimes things don't work out because they're not supposed to. What feels like rejection in the moment may actually be grace in disguise. It may be life clearing the path so you can walk in the direction you were truly meant to go. The pain of rejection is real, and it cuts deep, especially when you gave something your all. You prepared, you showed up, you believed, and still it didn't happen the way you hoped. That hurts. But what hurts more is when we let that pain define us. When we let it become a wall instead of a window. When we let it tell us that we should stop trying. Some people carry their rejections like they're wearing them. It becomes their story, their excuse, their limitation. But rejection is not an identity, it's an event. And events are temporary. Just because someone closed the door on you doesn't mean your story is over. It just means you were knocking on the wrong one. Or maybe it wasn't the wrong door, but it was the wrong time. Rejection has a way of forcing you to pause, to reevaluate, to refocus. And in that space, something powerful can happen. You gain clarity. You develop resilience. You start to see that what you thought you wanted may not have been what you truly needed. The world is full of people who were told no and still made it. Authors whose manuscripts were turned down dozens of times before one publisher said yes. Artists who were ignored, laughed at, dismissed until someone finally saw their vision. Entrepreneurs who failed again and again before finally finding their breakthrough. The common thread between them isn't that they never got rejected. It's that they didn't let rejection define their next move. They kept going. They kept building. They saw rejection not as a stop sign, but as a detour. When you stop seeing rejection as a statement about your worth, you start to take bigger risks. You stop playing it so safe. You begin to stretch into spaces that once scared you. Because you understand that rejection is not the enemy. It's simply part of the process. And often, it's the part that makes you stronger. Think about the things that didn't work out for you. The job you didn't get. The relationship that fell apart. The opportunity that slipped away. At the time, it felt like failure. But now looking back, Maybe you can see that those closed doors led you to better ones. Maybe the heartbreak taught you what real love should feel like. Maybe the missed promotion pushed you to create your own business. Maybe the silence forced you to find your own voice. Life has a way of removing what's not meant for us, even when we don't understand it in the moment. Rejection hurts, but sometimes it's the only thing strong enough to push us off the wrong path. Not every no is the end of the road. Sometimes it's just a sign that there's a different, better, bolder road waiting for you. When you stop taking rejection personally, you start taking it powerfully. You don't shrink from it. You study it. You don't let it shut you down. You let it sharpen you. You use it to build character, to build grit, to build faith. Because when you know who you are, no amount of rejection can take that away from you. Start showing up for you, not for the crowd. Too many people live their lives as if they're on a stage, constantly performing for an audience that may or may not even be watching. They shape their choices, their words, their dreams around the opinions and expectations of others, hoping to be liked, accepted, or admired. But when you live like that for too long, you lose touch with who you really are. You forget what you want, what you believe, and what you need. You wake up every day responding to someone else's idea of success, someone else's version of happiness. And before long, you become a stranger to your own soul. There comes a point where you have to stop living for applause and start living with alignment. That means making choices based on what's right for you, not what looks impressive, not what earns the most praise, not what fits the mold, just what speaks to your heart and your purpose. It's not selfish to prioritize yourself. It's not arrogant to believe your life should feel meaningful to you. In fact, it's necessary because you are the one who has to live with the consequences of your decisions. The crowd doesn't carry your regrets. The audience doesn't walk through your pain. They're not there when the lights go down and the room gets quiet. That's all on you. So why not live in a way that brings you peace instead of applause? When you start showing up for yourself, things begin to shift. You stop over-explaining your decisions to people who don't deserve a say. You stop over-committing to things that drain your spirit. You stop chasing validation like it's oxygen. Instead, you begin honoring your values. You take time for what fuels you. You listen to your own intuition, and you move with intention. You start walking in a way that feels solid, rooted, and real. And yes, not everyone will like it. Some people will feel uncomfortable when you stop playing your old roles. They'll say you've changed or become distant or lost your edge. But what they're really noticing is that you've stopped performing. You've stepped out of the costume and into your true identity. Showing up for yourself means setting boundaries without guilt. It means saying no to things that no longer serve your growth, even if they once made you feel accepted. It means protecting your energy, your peace, your time. It means putting your dreams on the calendar, not just as background ideas, but as priorities. It means letting your own voice be the loudest in your head, even when other voices are shouting. It's a powerful shift, and it changes everything. You begin to discover that your worth isn't up for negotiation, that you're allowed to take up space, that your needs matter, even when they inconvenience others. And once you embrace that truth, you become unstoppable. Because nothing is stronger than a person who is grounded in their own identity. They don't need the crowd to cheer. They don't panic when the room gets quiet. They know who they are, what they bring, and where they're going. Life moves fast, time keeps ticking, and if you don't show up for yourself, you might reach the end of the road having lived a life full of performance but empty of passion. It's not too late to change that. The people who matter will adjust to the real you. The rest were only there for the mask. Let them go. Take up space. Be too much. Choose your truth. And from this moment forward, decide that every room you walk into, you're walking in as yourself, for yourself. You only get one life. Why waste it fitting into someone else's idea of normal? From a young age, we're handed blueprints for how we're supposed to live. Get good grades, go to college, find a stable job, settle down, stay quiet, follow the path. The message is clear. Don't question the system. Don't stand out too much, and definitely don't chase something that hasn't already been done. But what if that version of life doesn't fit you? What if the so-called normal everyone praises feels too small for your spirit, too dull for your creativity, too tight for your ambition? Normal might work for some people, but it doesn't mean it has to be your road. Trying to fit into someone else's idea of what life should look like is like trying to wear shoes that aren't your size. You can walk in them for a while, but eventually they start to hurt. They slow you down, mess with your posture, make every step uncomfortable. And still, some people keep wearing those shoes their whole life because they're afraid of being barefoot, of being exposed, different, or alone. But the truth is, your freedom begins the moment you stop trying to walk like everybody else and start carving your own path. There's no trophy for following the script. There's no reward for playing small. And there's definitely no peace in living someone else's version of your life. People will try to box you in because they're afraid of what's outside the lines. They'll project their fears onto you and call it advice. They'll tell you to be realistic when what they really mean is don't challenge the comfort zone I built. But the people who make the biggest impact, who leave behind legacies, who wake up excited to live, they're not the ones who followed the script. They're the ones who ripped it up and wrote their own. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing a different path. You don't have to justify your passions, your goals, or your lifestyle to people who aren't brave enough to do the same. The ones who truly love you won't need you to be normal to feel comfortable around them. They'll respect your difference. They'll support your risk. They'll cheer for your wild ideas, not try to tame them. And if they don't, let them go. Life is too short to live on mute, too precious to waste on conformity. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to shine in a way only you can. That means embracing your quirks, honoring your voice, and choosing a path that excites you even if no one else gets it. Being different isn't a curse, it's your gift, but it only works if you claim it. If you stop apologizing for who you are, if you stop shrinking to fit into spaces you were never meant to occupy. Every minute you spend trying to fit in is a minute stolen from the life you could be living fully. And eventually those minutes turn into years. The longer you wait, the louder the regret becomes. The more you ignore your inner truth, the more distant it feels. But no matter how far off track you've gone, you can always come back to yourself. You can always choose authenticity over approval. You can always choose to live boldly instead of blandly. You don't have to settle for normal. You don't have to silence your ideas, delay your dreams, or water down your joy to fit into a world that rewards imitation. Your job isn't to meet expectations. Your job is to exceed your own. To wake up every day knowing you're chasing something that matters to you, even if the world doesn't understand it yet. You get one shot at this thing called life. One breath, one heartbeat, one chance to make it yours.